G3 Media LLC, and I'm here with Jake from Jake's Custom Game Calls. Jake has gotten into making turkey calls, but let's get some background on what led him into this hobby, as well as his love for turkey hunting. So, Jake, give us a little bit of background on what led you to start making calls.
Right, yeah. So I started turkey hunting when I was, well, probably 10 or 11 years old. My dad, and my grandfather always made his own turkey calls, and he also ran store-bought calls too. But I remember that when I got my first turkey, the call that brought him in was one that he, made by hand. It was a handmade box call that he named the Orange Blossom Special,
Okay.
and it was made out of a branch from an orange tree from Florida
Okay.
that his neighbor gave him because he lives down there and during the off season, if you will, for us hunters. So over winter when there's nothing to hunt.
Yeah.
Um, so after that, it kind of intrigued me. Of course, I was a kid, didn't really do any woodworking or anything, and fast forward, got into college, like working on my car, like every other,
Gearhead.
college age kid does,
Yeah.
and trying to save a little money and stuff. So I started acquiring some tools, and then last year I really took a deep dive into turkey hunting. I've always loved it, and I decided last year something's got to change here. So I hit it hard and spent a lot of money, and I started looking at these calls, and I was like, man, I can make that. And my grandfather makes them, so I can make these. So I started making some calls out of my college apartment with hammer and hand chisels that I bought from Lowe's.
So the basic of basics then.
Oh, it was extremely basic. I actually
Yeah.
brought one of them here today. This is the first call I made. I named it the Pop Box 1.
Okay.
It's a piece of poplar that I just hand carved,
Okay.
and I actually caught a turkey in with this last year, surprisingly. But as you can see, it's just a piece of wood.
Yeah, but sometimes the most simplistic things actually do some of the best jobs.
Right, and this is what kind of inspired me to keep going, because once I caught that turkey in, it was a different feeling. I was like, this is awesome. I
Nice.
called this bird in, and something I made.
All right. So from that, I'm assuming so you started with one particular type of call, and then from what you've got here on the table, it looks like you've also expanded out into a lot of different types of calls.
Yep.
So which one kind of led into the other?
Right. So from making it, from I guess a production standpoint, if you will, the trough calls seem to be, in my mind anyway, when I first started, the easier ones to make. Because when you look at one of these, they're just, linear slots, straight cuts, if you will,
Yeah.
into wood. And, like I said, I started with hand chisels, and I was like, okay, I can do that. And then it was kind of an easy transition into using saws to clear some of that out and finishing it with a chisel. So I started doing that, but then I realized that probably isn't the best way to go through it. I really didn't get into making quality calls until I got a lathe and I started turning these pot calls.
Okay. Tell us a little bit, just at a high level, about the pot call.
Right, so pot call, it starts with really any piece of wood you want. I'll use this red elm here as an example. I got a block of red elm. You cut it down to size, put it on the lathe, and then I'll turn it to shape. And every single one of these has a different shape because I don't have a template. I kind of go with what the wood wants to be made into and what I feel like making at the time. So what I'll do is I'll turn the outside down to round first, and then I'll bore the inside out. And then after I get the inside done, I'll sand this side and I'll sand this front face, and then I'll flip it over and put it on the chuck, and I'll do this true this backside up right here. And after that, I'm gonna put my holes in, clean up the center hole, and then I engrave my logo onto it.
Okay.
And then I do all the finish work on the call.
Nice. Very nice.
I do intermediate sound checks, but really the true sound check comes once you have the finish on, and it's pretty much done.
You get the whole thing together and actually see how everything
Exactly.
works together to get you the sound.
And sometimes I'll spend 3 or 4 hours on a call and it'll look great, and I'll put it together, and you can't get any sound out of it. It's any good. So you do have that occasionally, but
the biggest thing with a lot of things, and it's with calls or for myself as a guitar player, it may look pretty, but if it doesn't sound the way you want it,
Right.
then it just kind of kills the vibe.
Yep. For sure.
And it just sits on the shelf.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so we got the pot call, and then what do we have over here?
So these are scratch boxes. I actually just recently started making these, and
Okay.
almost by accident. I made this one first by hand, because because I had a bunch of scrap wood laying around, and but this is one of the easiest, most simple form of call. I guess maybe not easiest. I saw an older guy last year turkey hunting, and he kid just killed a turkey. I hunt public land mainly, and I was talking to him about calls and talking to him. Hey, I make some calls, and
Okay.
he showed me what he used. It was an old Lynch scratch box, and it looked similar to this. And I had that idea in my mind. I remember seeing it one time. I was like, well, I have some scrap wood, so I threw this together, and now I make it a little different. I don't do them all the same, but these are all generally the same kind of design, and I call these the hen scratchers.
Okay.
And there's just different wood types
they
and stuff there.
kind of tuned to the call of the hen then?
Yeah, so
Okay.
all these are hen calls.
Okay.
And they're female turkey calls. They're, you hunt the gobblers, but you're trying to mimic a hen with all these.
You get the hen to call the gobbler in.
Pretty
yeah.
much.
Okay.
Yep, that's the idea.
All right then. So what else do we have here on the table? You've got this call over here.
So that's a deer call. That's a grunt call.
Okay.
That's
So you go from turkey and you started making some deer grunt calls as well.
That's correct. I made a few duck calls. I didn't bring any of those because my buddy, I gave them right to my buddy.
Hey, that's all right. Hey,
and,
you're making money off of it now.
No, that was a gift.
All right.
But I've even made an elk call for one guy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But those are all turned on the lathe. I guess real quick, going back to these trough calls now, the standard design here, I finally figured out is this 3-inch wide, 4-inch length trough call. As you can see, I have my variations here that I went through, made this one first and then into this size and down into this. And each one of them has their own different pros and cons. And I find that easier to fit into like your shirt pocket or something.
Yeah.
And then, this big hunking thing. But
supportability comes into play as well too.
Oh, for sure. Because when you look at this, and where are you going to put that?
Yeah.
Think about your turkey vest. That's going to be hard to keep somewhere. Now, I really like the way that call sounds, but if you can't carry it with you, it's no good.
Yeah.
And then I'd say probably the last one we got is this box call here. I'm just now getting into making these box calls. This is cedar and black walnut. These are classic, long range kind of calls if you want to locate birds, locator calls, and they're also good for calling in birds. And really, if you want to get out in the woods and turkey hunt and you've never picked up a call ever in your life, and
that's kind of like the first one that I really remember, like when my dad started turkey hunting. That was kind of the easiest thing, or the simplistic or most basic thing that he could go out and grab something like that and then just easily just practice getting a sound from that. Yep.
And I mean, all of these calls are relatively simple to use, right? But, they're all 2-piece calls other than this box call. It's all right there, self-contained. And stuff like, so if you just want to not worry, maybe you lose stuff all the time, or you don't have a nice turkey vest, or what you have got holes in it, you're worried about all that, or maybe you just want to go minimalist this year and have one call to do it all, that'd be your box call.
Okay. And then as you get more experienced with this, you want to kind of learn how to do different types of calls or tune what you're wanting to do a little bit more precise, then you can go to the different types of calls here.
That's true.
And get different timbres and different sounds out of those.
Yep. And the big thing, the big thing in all these, right? And as you're looking at them, they're all different, but the friction surface. So either that's your copper, your slate, or your aluminum, and also the wood type is what gives you that different sound. And then even the internal dimensions of the call, everything plays into changing the sound. But you can get general different pitches out of the different friction surfaces. The easy way to characterize it. So.
And you combine that with the acoustic properties if you change the cavity inside of there too.
Exactly.
Okay. Very cool. So this has been an overview here of Jake's custom game calls. There'll be some additional videos upcoming that are going to go through each of these different types of calls that Jake provides. And we'll actually get into the sounds of each of these as well too. So you, the customer, and those that are just learning about this can get an idea of the different sounds produced by these. So I'd like to thank Jake again here for going through what he has, and please check out his Etsy site, which is Jake's Custom Calls. This has been a production of OV3 Media LLC. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Chad.
Yep.
This is a production of OV3 Media LLC.